All right, we've got the recording going. Okay. All right, ladies, welcome to class 2 of the Natural Birth Success Formula. Super happy you're here, and thank you for taking the time this busy week. We've got Christmas coming up this week, and this is probably going to be a pretty quick class. This is one of the great things about us doing this kind of beta launch with this class, to kind of see how it goes, because we put the content together and we don't really know how the class will play out till we actually do it. And as we were doing some preparations on this class too, we thought this is really not going to be a super long class. Maybe we can combine it with maybe in the future we should combine it with one of the other topics. So we'll see. So this might be pretty short tonight, but
it initially on paper seemed like it would be a lot.
Yes, it did.
It seemed like it would be a whole thing, but then when we started putting it together, we were like, maybe not.
So that's the whole point of this. Let's get some feedback. Let's see how this is going to go. So tonight, class 2 is all about your childbirth education class options. You've probably seen there's like all different kinds of classes, and what one's the best or what ones teach what. So we're going to kind of go through them, and you can kind of see which ones you think suit your fancy.
Yeah, because there are a lot of them. So not one's going to necessarily be better per se than another. It really depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, depends on what you're looking for.
Or what stuff you want it to focus on, things like that. How you're expecting, like how you're imagining, envisioning your birth to be.
Right. So why bother with a childbirth education class? We kind of talked last week about how you shouldn't just, you don't go into birth just, especially if you're wanting a natural birth, just like, I'm just going to give this a try. You need to prepare. Mm-hmm. And birth is a big deal. Like your body and your mind goes through so much. It is really important to take the time to go through a childbirth education class so that you can understand what your body's going to go through, what your baby's going to go through, understanding that whole process, and prepare yourself mentally. I feel like the mental preparation part is really
yes, especially when you're planning a natural childbirth, you're going to definitely want to be mentally prepared. And a childbirth education class will help you to feel like you are in control of all your choices, and your choices.
Right.
And kind of what to expect to the best that it can be described.
I love you. I love that you say that, because I know you so well. To the best that it can be described. Yeah, you really don't know what it's like till you go through it. But
no, and everybody describes it differently. Steph's very empowered with hers, and she doesn't like my description of it.
It's not that I don't like it, it's just different. Crystal's a rock star birther, and she hates birth.
I run it every time.
Oh man, that's funny. Okay, so there are lots of different kinds of birth classes, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about some of the other ones at the end of tonight, but these are kind of the main big name methods of childbirth class.
Easy
you got
to
Lamaze.
find instructors for.
Yes.
And so people who are experienced.
Yes. So you can find these types of classes. They're pretty common around. So you got Lamaze, Bradley, which is also called Husband Coach Childbirth, Hypno Birthing, Hypno Babies, and Birthing from Within. Oh, and BirthWorks. We forgot to add that on here because that was one that
we actually had it on here and took it off, and I think we had it on here again and took it off.
So BirthWorks is another one. Okay. So Lamaze, I think, is kind of like that's what everybody thinks of, like, right? When you think of birth classes, right? So Lamaze are like Lamaze has been around since like the 40s, I think. And it's kind of the most common birth class, or at least it has been traditionally. There's more birth classes have come on the scene, as time's gone on, but Lamaze is kind of like that was kind of like the gold standard before. So Lamaze focuses a lot on breathing.
It does,
And
but it isn't just on the breathing. I know we make fun of it, but that is one of the myths that, I mean, has been around enough that they wrote a whole myths page about Lamaze.
Oh yeah, cool. We'll share it
on their website. I shared their website down at the bottom. It's one of their tabs. It's easy to find. But yeah, it's not just on breathing. So when everybody's just making fun of, the it's not, it's got way more than that. It's just, distractions and things to focus on in order to manage your pain and where you're at with it. So you don't feel like you're going crazy, like you want to run out of the room in the middle of labor.
Right. Yeah, so one of the kind of hallmarks of Lamaze is that they teach you how to focus on outward distractions, like you're trying to distract yourself from the pain. So they focus on breathing patterns and focusing on, pleasant memories and images. So you're distracting your brain to take your mind off of the pain is kind of the background of the method. So it's generally a 6-week course. And one thing I noticed when we were kind of looking at the different methods is some of them differ in length depending on who's teaching it. So
yes,
not all of them are going to be 6 weeks, right?
Just in general, and this course is not quite as in depth about as others because it's pretty much a class to kind of get you through labor.
Right. And it teaches you different breathing patterns for different stages of labor. And one thing to note about Lamaze is it's not really specifically a natural childbirth method. Like some of the other ones are really more specifically like aimed towards helping people have a natural birth. Lamaze, they talk about, all different kinds of birth. So if you're looking for something that's really going to help you to prepare like specifically for natural birth, there's other options. Hang on,
to get through the transition and some of the harder parts of labor. It's focus isn't necessarily on getting you through that.
Yeah. All right. So Bradley, I feel like is pretty common also. Yeah. And Bradley is a more in-depth class than Lamaze is. It's a longer course. It's typically like it's a 12-week. It's a pretty long course. It's super in-depth. This is also called or has been called husband coach childbirth. So Dr. Bradley was an OB who focused a lot on like having a labor coach and husbands being more involved in labor. So this is a labor coached method, and it's very, very like geared towards a natural birth and being able to avoid medications and intervention and stuff. So with Bradley, you need to have your labor coach with you, and it goes through pregnancy stuff.
Committed with your partner, with your labor coach needs to be committed to attending and doing the exercises.
Right. And one of the things that marks Bradley apart from Lamaze, well, I mean, there's quite a few things because it's really just not the same, is that Bradley helps you focus inward. So it teaches deep breathing and inward focus, like you're focusing in on yourself rather than trying to distract your brain from labor. So that's kind of like two major differences. And a lot of people will say that Bradley gives them more tools to help for a challenging labor. So it teaches deep relaxation and just a whole bunch of other stuff. It's a pretty comprehensive course.
Yeah. And unlike Lamaze, which really just focuses kind of on the labor, the Bradley method will also goes over things to expect from pregnancy through labor and kind of into recovery, but whereas Lamaze does not.
Okay. All right. Birthing from within is a unique program. So birthing from within is really like a very like holistic approach to birth. They focus a lot on the emotional and spiritual aspects of birth, like hence the name, like birthing from within. You're like tapping into your inner self, and it's really heavy on mindfulness and self-discovery. It's a whole, they focus a lot on like ancient, like how we all have like this innate birth instinct, from ancient times. So they do a lot of like birth art. That's a huge part of birthing from within, is birth art and discovering your long held, like your inner beliefs about birth, your fears about birth, all that kind of stuff. And they do talk about different interventions and different like how can I say it? Like the academic side of birth, the education side of birth. Like they talk about those things, but it's very like more about your birth, like your inner self. Does that make sense? Crystal, am I explaining that well?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, because I knew a couple of ladies who went to some of these things, and it seemed to me, from the reading and the research we've done on it and talking to or seeing what some of these ladies did, that it's very much about celebrating your pregnancy and celebrating you and your baby together, and that this is like, birth is like a celebration and not something to be feared, and it's like a spiritual thing when you have your baby, and that you want to make this into like almost ritualistic, but they really did involve like education of the birth and stuff. But there is a lot that it is very heavily about like a spiritualness between you and your child, and the birthing process being like this really big special thing. So they are trying to teach you to not be scared of birth, but this big, they did that it is very special. And then they teach you all the stuff about what stuff to do with birth, and kind of the mindfulness during out it, so that you're not getting scared. So it's not so you go into labor without this scared feeling. You're going in there and you're feeling calm and ready and excited, and that this is like this really special thing between you and your baby.
Right. And and that birth is a very active process. So one thing that's interesting about birthing from within, like the environment of a class is different. They don't have like the cushy chairs and the bean bags and that kind of stuff. It's like birth is seen as like you're working, you're moving, you're listening to your body. Like it's very intuitive. They don't like to portray birth as like you're going to go and you're just going to relax. Like it's a very active process. So I feel like that is something that definitely sets birthing from within apart from some of the other programs. It's kind of different.
Yes, there's quite a bit of movement at their classes. They would have some of these classes at the birth center I was at, and once in a while I would be there for my appointment when they were having a class. And there's definitely like they're moving, and then when they have a celebration before, it has a special name, I can't remember the name, but where they celebrate the baby's going to be coming and all this, and during the classes there's a lot of moving, so that you know where your body is in space and how to kind of like move through the pain, and so it isn't to lay down and let this happen. It's be a part of it.
Right. Okay. So we've got hypno birthing, which is this is a pretty popular thing these days. So
even the Duchess of Cambridge did hypno birthing.
That's pretty cool. So the main thing about hypno birthing is that hypnobirthing proposes that pain is not a necessary part of labor. So if you don't have fear and you have full relaxation, that you can birth pain-free. And I've read stories of women who have had what they would say are pain-free births through hypnobirthing. Some of them are like, okay, yeah, do you just feel a lot of pressure, but there's not pain? And then I've also heard women say, yeah, hypnobirthing is great, but like when you get down to brass tacks at transition and everything, kind of sometimes things go out the window. And I would say, probably from my perspective, if you have a lot of practice with hypnobirthing, you're going to be more likely to, be able to push through all the way to the end with the method of hypnobirthing. So that with hypnobirthing especially, it's really important that you have the classes completed by the end of your second trimester. Like this is something that you should do. There's no crash course in hypnobirthing. Like you need to do it early on because you need to practice being able to get your mind into a hypnotic state, basically. So hypnobirthing, obviously. Go ahead.
With the hypnosis thing, it's not like you're in this state where somebody can control you,
Oh yeah.
into those things. It's not like that. It's just a really focused attention state that you're able to get in on your own so that you can you can easily be practiced at relaxing, and kind of like the state you're in when you're reading, your mind's relaxed, but it's also very focused. And that's
right.
what, that's the kind of state it's going into. I think a lot of people, when they hear hypnosis, they're like, so they're going to put me in this strange trance and I'm going to be influenced in some ways or something. It's not like that at all.
Yeah, you're right. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's a really important point that I totally would have overlooked. But yeah, but nevertheless, it is something that you need to practice, being able to get into a relaxed enough state. So the way it works is they have like CDs of birth hypnosis tracks that you listen to. And so you can listen to them, in your pregnancy so that you can practice that. And then you listen to them during labor. So the focus isn't so much on like pregnancy and like the facts and all that stuff about the stages of labor. It's really about how to get into that relaxed state.
Mm-hmm. And it does take practice. So like Steph was saying, if you're going to choose that, you're going to want to get that before, long before, your
you're not going to be
38 weeks comes along, because it is a practiced thing.
Yeah, you're not starting a hypnobirthing class at 32 weeks or something. And then hypno babies, there's a lot of like confusion. Like, are hypno babies and hypnobirthing the same thing? Are they different? What is the difference? And they are different. So hypno babies was a course that was developed after hypnobirthing that kind of like expanded on it, and it's a little bit different, but it's a lot more of a comprehensive course because they do talk about labor and pregnancy and all that kind of stuff. And they, unlike hypnobirthing, hypno babies does discuss in their classes labor pain. So it's not like the idea that pain isn't a part of labor. It acknowledges that pain is a part of labor and helps you with exercises and hypnosis to build coping skills to manage pain.
Yeah. Birthing is more of a like try and get rid of the pain if you can get into a focused enough state, I guess, on something else. But it's not hypno babies, like Steph says, it helps you to cope through it, as opposed to
not experiencing it.
You're going to be able to get rid of your pain. And hypno birthing was created by an obstetrician, and hypno babies was created from a medical hypnotherapist. So
they use actual like medical grade hypnosis techniques.
Yes.
So it's actually like more real hypnosis.
Yeah, like when you go to a therapist or something that would put you into a hypnotic state. I mean, those hypnotic trances are not what they put on the stage. at the show or whatever. It's not like
The
that.
hypnotist show.
It's just trying to get you in that focused, that state where you can really be relaxed in your body and relaxed with stuff, but really focused on something else.
But you have a heightened sense of awareness.
Yes.
Yeah. So those are, yeah, I mean, so hypno birthing and hypnobirthing is like similar but different, right? And then we have Birth Works, and Birth Works, I actually wasn't super familiar with this, but this is a pretty cool program. So Birth Works, like the whole point is to help women develop more trust and faith in their body. So it's not necessarily a method. It's not like, oh, if you felt like, hypno babies and hypno birthing, those are like specific methods. This is what, you do. If you do this, you're going to have, this less pain or whatever. Like Birth Works is very much like every birth is different. And that looks different for everybody, but they have a set of kind of like their, not their mission statement, but like they believe, or
Their philosophy.
Their philosophy. Yeah. Thank you. I'm like, why am I having such a hard time coming up with this very simple word? Their philosophy is that, birth happens best for each woman in the environment that she's most comfortable in. And so they basically, it's a very, comprehensive course that goes over, they focus on evidence-based care, and it focuses on the academic aspect of birth, meaning like this is what's going to happen to your body, these are the stages of labor, helping with the physiology of it and all that, but also the emotional aspect of labor, where like the more you trust your body and you get rid of the fear, and you have this belief that you have an innate ability to birth, and that every woman is built to birth, that your birth is going to go a lot better. So they focus on all of that. This is another program you're encouraged to start earlier in pregnancy, so that you can, really work on your mindset around birth. And
they have a lot of different courses that you can pick out kind of the stuff you want to focus on too. Like when you go on there, it's almost like an a la carte type thing. Because there are different kinds of workshops and different kinds of webinars that they offer and attend. So it's not like a whole course that you would have to go through and then you have to hear everything, even if it's something that you feel like you just don't really care. So this is more of, you sign up for which kinds of classes that you want. And for all of these, from when I was looking at like the different scheduling and stuff, it seems like a lot of them are now pretty much all offered virtually. Some of them,
yeah.
It's very hard to find one that's offered in person right now. So
yeah, I mean, that probably kind of depends on the area too, but yeah, like that's one thing that I think it's important to realize too. Like there's so many different childbirth education classes out there. The ones that we just covered are kind of like your main different methods or different course offerings. There's other ones, but there's a lot of birth classes that are just just general birth education classes. Yeah. Oh, you know what? We should have done a slide in here about hospital classes, because those, all hospitals pretty much offer a birth class, and I've seen different kinds of hospital classes. So this is where, if you're planning a natural birth, which you are, or you wouldn't be here, if you're going to take a class at the hospital, just look at what they're about. Like some hospitals do have different methods, like they'll have a Bradley class, or they'll have a hypno birthing class or whatever. But some of the like just general birth classes at the hospital aren't really geared towards how to have a natural birth. Like it's just like, oh, this is what's going to happen, and here's how an epidural works, here's what's going to happen when you come into the hospital. And it's more focused on like the procedures at that hospital. And that's not really helpful to you if your whole point of having a birth class is how to have a natural birth and learning all about the physiology of it, the mindset of it, all that kind of stuff. You're not going to get that at a general hospital class. Now, I know that one of the hospital systems in our area has a really comprehensive, like pretty dang good hospital class that was online. Like I I was curious about it with one of my clients, and I went through her class, and I was like, dang, I was really impressed because it did talk a lot about natural birth. It was, I mean, it talked about both, and it talked about what your body's going to go through and had really awesome videos and all that kind of stuff. So I was super impressed by that class. So, I mean,
Well, and there's also, if you look around at your local birth centers, even if you're planning a hospital birth, a lot of them offer different classes about different things all the time too. So it's not like a course, like a 6-week course or anything, but they offer different classes. You need birth centers will bring in different people who are certified in all kinds of things, and to check those out. The hard thing when we were putting this class together was this problem is that there was this handful of classes that were very similar yet very different, but then there are so many options. There was no way we could list all the classes that somebody could possibly give.
Right, exactly. And here and
the hospital birth centers, and there are so many online that people have created their own from stuff they've noticed with their own clients.
Right. And one thing I should mention about that hospital class that I just said that was really good is that was a really good education class of like, here's your options, here's what's going to happen to you, that kind of stuff. But it didn't teach you how to manage pain or how to have the natural birth or practicing. Like, so even that class, if for somebody who wants to have a natural birth, you really should take a class that you're practicing what you're going to do to have, how you're going to get through labor, like what you're going to do. It's important. And you can also just kind of focus on the teacher too. Like a lot of doulas teach classes, and those are great choice. And some of them will teach like classes that aren't with a certain method. They're just teaching you the basics of what birth is, and then and then it's kind of might be a mishmash of all these things. I'd say if you're wanting to do the hypno birthing type thing, that specific class would be like, if you want to learn how to do hypno birthing or like hypno babies, the hypnosis thing, you need to take that specific class. But if you're wanting to just look for a class that's going to teach you some pain coping techniques, and then there's a lot of different options, right?
Yeah.
And like Crystal said, like especially right now, everything's offered online. So you might be able to, depending on your area, you might be able to find some in person now. I think here we could where I am, but some places you might not be able to, but you can find interactive workshops. You can find self-led courses. You can find weekend like crash courses, like a weekend workshop, for people who can't go for every week for 12 weeks or whatever. And then there are also other techniques that can help with birth that aren't necessarily birth classes, like spinning babies. Spinning babies is a great one. Like I love spinning babies, and I think that it would be super beneficial for every pregnant woman to take a spinning babies course, because it really talks about and focuses on the positioning of your baby, which I can say as a doula, like is one of the most important things with birth, is the position of your baby, because whether or not your baby's positioned.
Keep going.
I was just going to say, whether or not your baby is properly positioned for birth is really, it seriously can make or break. Like I mean, if your baby's,
their head needs to be engaged properly on the cervix, otherwise they're gonna,
it just takes forever. That's the thing, is a lot of long labors, it's just your body is just like doing all these things. Your body is so beautifully created. Like your body's just trying to get that baby into the proper position. So when I have a client that has a really long early labor, I'm like, dang, what position is that baby in? Because it's just your body trying to get that baby engaged properly. And once the baby's engaged properly onto your cervix, usually things move a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So
and you got to remember, those babies are separate individual humans that, if they don't want their head cocked just how your body keeps trying to squish it to, some of them are brats and are like, nope, I'm going to look this way and I'm going to tilt my head up and I'm going to do this. And so like our little sister she for days, had labor contractions for days and days because her baby was kinked. And finally she went to a chiropractor who doesn't necessarily specialize in spinning babies, but helps adjust the baby in the womb.
And the pelvis, like helps get
And the
everything
pelvis,
loose.
and moved her head. And when she came out, because she'd been cocked in one spot, you could tell her head had been jammed just slightly like this up there. So the crown of her head wasn't pressing on the cervix. It was just enough of the softer spots of her head to make labor going, but not fully start opening the cervix and get everything going. So the position of your baby really helps. And if they start turning around, they're just positions and ways to encourage that baby to turn its little booty around, because we can only do so much. It's got to, he or she needs to decide to.
Right. But there are lots of
Encourage
things
it.
that you can do to help your baby be able to move. Like if your
Yes.
ligaments, if you're all tight, like it can like make that baby, it's hard for the baby to move if it, the baby can't move around in there if everything's tight. And there's lots of different positions that you can get into. And
Yeah.
so spinning babies teaches you how to kind of figure out what position your baby's in and help just get everything opened up and move all around so that you're giving your baby the most possible room to really just rotate around and engage the way that baby needs to be engaged. And if you can help prevent your baby from being in a posterior position, like posterior position doesn't mean that there's no way you can have a natural birth because your back labor is going to be so bad.
Now, what is a posterior position?
Posterior position is when the back of your baby's head is up against your tailbone. So sometimes they call it sunny side up. So your baby should come out with your baby's face should be facing your butt. But if the baby's the other way, then when the baby tucks like this, so your contractions are coming across your belly. And if the baby's face is towards your butt, just imagine your baby's head right now and imagine the contraction coming down your belly. And that as that tightening waves down your belly, it's going to tuck your baby's head like this. And then that head is going to tuck like this and put pressure down on your cervix. But if the baby's like this, can you see my hands, Chris?
Yeah.
Those contractions are going to come down and your baby's going to flex, right? And then that head is going back into your, it's flexing this way. The head's going right into your back, right into your tailbone. And that's why women, when they have a baby in a posterior position, have so much back labor. So it's not ideal. And oftentimes it takes babies a lot longer to come out when they're posterior. But there's actually a lot you can do even during pregnancy is the best to help encourage your baby to rotate, or even if your baby's breached, to help encourage your baby to flip head down. And there's even stuff that you can do in labor to help encourage your baby to rotate around. So most babies who start labor in a posterior position will rotate into an anterior position before they actually come out. Sometimes they don't. But so spinning babies is just a really good thing anyway, I feel like, even if no matter what birthing methods you're doing.
Practice no matter where you're at. Some of those positions I practice throughout labor because really they just feel good. So especially in those last months, it really helps just open like your hips out, and you can tell it's giving your baby a little bit more room and you more room. And I had my second daughter at 33 weeks was breech, and my midwife was like, it's probably not a big deal. She'll probably flip, but we do need to get her to flip around. And the sooner the better, because she's, they just get bigger and bigger those last few weeks. And she had me doing spinning babies, and it really it helped relieve back pain and stuff.
Yeah. And one of our friends is on here, and she's also a doula, an amazing doula. And she tries to have all of her clients do spinning babies. Maybe she'll unmute. Jess, can you unmute?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the spinning baby? Isn't that spinning babies course only like $16 or something?
Yeah, so they have a parent class that's $24.99. It's a parenting class, really just talks about the the basics of your pelvis, the structure, your ligaments, and the importance of balance within your pelvis and your ligaments so that there is optimal fetal positioning. So they have their parenting class. It's about 2 hours and 10 minutes, I think. And then they also have a balancing exercise video that I think it's only $16.99, and it's an hour and 20 minutes, I believe. And that is like daily exercises that you can do, kind of yoga poses, I think, stretches. Again, same thing, just to balance the pelvis and get everything the way that it should be so that baby can be in optimal position. And yes,
so
I do recommend it to every client that I have, just because, again, like you're all saying, that baby's position matters so much. So if you can do what you are able to do, then that's so much better, because you want that baby to be in that optimal position to help come down into the pelvis, put pressure on your cervix, and help you dilate in the face.
Yeah.
Right. It's a huge benefit to have baby in an optimal position. It just helps. I just feel like almost every client that has had like a wonky labor, after, when I'm processing it and going back over and looking back at the birth, I'm like, I think maybe the baby was just in a weird position, like, you know.
Yeah, with the weird positioning, I think really, and I know you two ladies are the doulas, but the position of that baby really does play a key factor, determining factor in the successful outcome of a labor and the speed of it.
The speed, and that's a huge thing.
And that really plays into whether or not, you know, what interventions happen and how tired you get by the end. If you've been in labor for 20 hours, you're exhausted. And even if you really, really want a natural birth, like, you're doggone tired at the end. So
Right.
an optimal positioning, you know, a head tilt or something going wrong, like, it just, you know, be nice. It's just a easy way to keep that, I mean, to keep you moving and to get that baby encouraged to put her head down or his head down, and
Yep.
tilt his chin in and be a little bit, you know, have a little space for him so they have space to be a little more cooperative.
Right. And on this same note of positioning and stuff, there's other techniques that can be super helpful for birth. There's the Alexander technique, which is different movements and stuff, and you can find Alexander technique instructors online. And that's more of like it's not like chiropractic. Like, chiropractic care is another good thing to help your body get ready for birth, that will help you in your aim for a natural birth, because chiropractic care, like Crystal was telling you about our sister, helps to, you know, unkink your pelvis if it's all messed, you know, if it's messed up, loosen everything up, and it can help you like help prepare your body for labor. And if you're looking for a chiropractor, I should have put this in here.
Yeah, we have
this is helpful, because now in the future classes we'll put these in here. So you want to look for a chiropractor that's certified in the Webster technique, which is a prenatal, you know, it's pregnancy stuff. And so they can actually help you to be, my chiropractor was saying that her clients that get regular chiropractic care at the end of their pregnancy always have pretty quick labors. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And I didn't get regular chiropractic care in pregnancy until my last one, number 6. And I mean, I don't know for sure if it had anything to do with the chiropractic care, because like I told you guys last week, I already had a super fast labor before that, but my number 6 was by far the fastest. So that fast labor that I had on the birth center lawn was 3 hours start to finish, right, Chris?
I think so.
3 hours start to finish. It was just that I just kind of waited too long to leave home. But with Gemma, with number 6, it was like 45 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe like an hour and a half from like the first I'm having contractions. Are these labor? Am I in labor? I'm not sure. Yeah, I think I'm having them regularly. It was like 45 minutes from when I was like, no, I'm really in labor, to when she was born. And I did have regular chiropractic care at the end of pregnancy with her. And so I don't know. I would assume it probably had something to do with it. My chiropractor would probably say it did. But so that's a good thing to do. And check into Alexander technique, all these types of things. If you're really wanting a natural birth, like get your body ready and help encourage, make your body and help your baby to put you both in the best optimal starting point for labor.
Yeah. Well, and if your labors are usually labors that are going faster, have less stuff you have less time for stuff to go wrong, because everything's probably, in its nice organized way. And that doesn't mean you're not going to have any problem, like there are any problems with longer ones, but if everything's in order, then these babies tend to
Yeah, they tend to come out faster. We are born to birth, where our bodies are created to birth, and we are perfectly capable of it. Your body was created to birth, and you have everything that you need. And I think, like we've said 100 times in this class, we said it last week, so we hit it so hard. Like, we cannot guarantee that everything's going to go da, 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 da with your labor, like that everything's going to go perfectly, or that there aren't going to be surprises that come up. However, the more you can prepare yourself, physically,
empower yourself,
and your knowledge, your mindset, your belief in yourself, your belief in the process, and educate yourself about your options. All those things in line are what the whole goal of this whole class series we're doing for you is, to help you have the most likely chance at having the birth that you want, right? So, I mean, if you have all these things, you've done all these things, you've prepared yourself, you've got your baby in a great position, your options, all these things, you're going to be so much more likely to have. I mean, most often, if birth is left alone, most often it just goes without a hitch. It really does. A lot of times when we start to have problems is when we aren't prepared, when you just go into labor hoping everything's going to go okay. You're not prepared. You don't know, you haven't prepared your body, you haven't prepared your mind, all these things. Then it's just this haphazard, like, let's just go in and have this baby and see what happens. And, because then we'll just let all the interventions take over to make this baby
let it
come,
happen
right?
to yourself, as opposed to hopping in that driver's seat and driving your birth. And, of course, like if you're driving, stuff happens, but at least you're not.
This is like you're planning your trip. You've got your first aid kit, you've got your water, you've got all the things, where you're going, you've got your hotel booked. Yep, you got all the things ready for this trip. You're not just like, I'm just gonna jump in the car and we'll see what happens. Maybe there's a gas station on the way, maybe there isn't. Like, same type of thing. So that's about it, you guys. This did end up being 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording then. So next class, we're going to go over your pain relief options.
Yeah. Well, any questions about any of that? Do you have anything
is there any questions before I
specific to anybody's needs, or
you
just
unmute, or
we covered the stuff that you could think of, or do you think there's anything we could mention?
I think you guys did a really good job.
Okay.
Well, good. I will take.
Yeah.
I know you'd be honest, so I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to stop the recording because we got that covered. And then stay on for just a second because I have. Oh, did somebody unmute? Oh, hey, Monica.
Monica's unmuted.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I just looked up the. I found a chiropractor that does the Webster technique near me.
Yay. So. Sweet.
I've always wanted to go to a chiropractor, but I just never have, and I think this will really help.
Oh yeah, you definitely should. You definitely should.
You've already had babies, and you don't need a day in class, but chiropractic care is a great one if you've already had kids.
Well, I've never had fast births, and I think that's part of it. The positioning. I had my second baby was breech, and when I did the version, which I didn't need to do, I wish I had known about. I wish I had just done the exercises, because with my the fourth baby, I did the exercises. I was breech. I did the exercises, and everything went well. But I still have long births, so I think that's part of it. I think
Probably.
conditioning and yeah. So
And you said you've always been able, did you say you have gone natural every time or no?
Yeah.
You have, right? Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, well, try it. And I want to hear when are you due?
I'm doing March.
In March. Okay. I'm gonna write that down because I'm curious. I want to hear how it goes.
Yeah.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, I mean, I know I can do it. My sister had, my mom, I'm one of 5. My sister had 4 births before me, and she was like, you know, giving me advice. She gave me a lot of good advice prior to going into it. But I didn't really take a lot of classes and everything. I just am strong-willed, I guess.
Yeah. Good for you.
And I don't have a high pain tolerance, but I can do this because I know I read a lot about it, you know.
Yeah.
And
So you just believed you could do it.
Yeah.
And did you say, where did you birth where have your births been? Hospital?
It's always been in the hospital.
Okay. Did you say you're not doing this one in the hospital?
I am looking into other the birthing centers and everything, but
Okay, that's what you said.
I really like that. There's a midwife practice that does it through the hospital, and I've been really happy with their care. That's who I had with the last one. So
yeah, if you've got care providers you like and that they're supportive of you, then that's really all that counts.
Yeah, very supportive. Yeah. So.
And
that's awesome.
The one technique, and I should have mentioned this in our class. The one thing I read.
Well, we are still recording, so it'll be in there.
Oh, the one thing I read that has made the biggest difference in my labors was something from this doctor who said your shoulders are somehow, and he explained it, attached to your uterus. So when you're breathing and you find your shoulders are tightening up, that during those contractions to force your shoulders to relax. And it really does make your contractions go faster. If I find myself like getting stressed out and tensing up in my shoulders, I'm like, nope, got to drop my shoulders and let the shoulders relax. And then it does force, it allows your uterus to just really take it off.
Yeah, I
have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Crystal, do you think that it's your shoulders, or do you think that when your shoulders are tense, also tense?
Okay, you were garbly. Do you think that it's?
Oh, I was?
Yeah, so you said, do you think it's really your shoulders, or do you think it's when your shoulders are tense? What is tense?
Your throat.
Oh,
you know, Ina May Gaskin.
Yeah,
she talks about the sphincter law, and that your throat is your cervix, just like your other sphincters is a sphincter. And when you relax your throat and open everything, which kind of is, I feel, that area of your body, when your shoulders are tense, your throat is also tense.
That's a good point. It is. I wonder if that is.
Thought of it. I mean, it definitely could. It's all in this area. And I just figure it's when you tense up, it tenses up and slows stuff down. So you got to relax. And the sign of relaxing is your shoulders not being tense enough.
Absolutely. It's so true. Every client I have.
Get the wobbly arms in and floppy fish on your shoulders down.
Relax your shoulders, relax your jaw.
Yes, your jaw. But I feel like if your shoulders are tense, your jaw is starting to get tense. And I know it's all connected in there. Relax your shoulders and your jaw and your throat and your everything.
Relax your everything. Yes.
Just relax and let your stomach feel like it's trying to pull everything out of you.
It really is. The only way through the pain is through the pain, and you have to relax and surrender to it and get out of the way.
Yeah, you
Yes.
have, that's a great way of putting it. You have to get out of the way
Yep.
because that baby's got to come. And if you are in the way, it just hurts because you have to push through. But if you let it just go, it hurts, but it's not, you're not fighting it. And it doesn't,
Right. It's a
you
huge
know,
difference.
you don't feel like you're in a fight during it. And that's what's exceptionally painful.
Yeah,
So-
I'm gonna end this so that the recording's not so long for other people. But Monica, I have a question for you. Hang on, is he yes?